All right, we are live for a special Woo Woo Wednesday 20th episode with Mike Alien Carvings, 40th episode of Woo Woo Wednesday. And thank you, Provo, so much for the $2 super chat. A fresh stream indeed. And we've got some breakthroughs even from last week. Mike has gotten some test results back, and they support what I've been saying for a while. It is, well, let you take it away, Mr. Mike.
Actually, I don't have test results on this specifically yet. I just have news that there are test results done. I don't have them personally, so that's out of
Okay,
my jurisdiction. So I will correct you on that, just because I don't want to come off wrong.
absolutely,
But
please do.
we do have information that will be repeatable, reliable, and a type of scientific evidence that can be seen across the board within these pieces, not just from Tula, not just from Abuelos, but in multiple places in Mexico. We find interesting, metamorphic specimen. And when you get these things tested, these rocks to find out what's in them, they often come back as a metamorphic, rock of some form, like a limestone. And so we're starting to see evidence that let's see, I think I just had a piece here I was showing you guys. Where did I put that? Oh, here. There we go. You can see like on these, sometimes there's pyramids, sometimes they're whatever, but there's multiple sides of this stone, right? You've got this face, and you can see that there's pores all over the face of this stone here, all over the face of the stone here, all over the face of the stone. It's
Bubble.
dirty, but it's on the bottom, right? So we have bubbles on all sides. But I've gotten a lot of these pieces broken in the mail, and when they come broken in half, you can clearly see there's no pores going through them whatsoever. It's a white stone all the way through. It looks like a powder inside of it, kind of like if you were to break a ceramic and it's glazed on the outside or something of this nature. And so what we're finding is that there's a traces of things inside of this that are going to be something that we can test for to show that this is impossible to be made inside of the earth due to the harsh conditions that are involved with that type of pressure and heat. Things shouldn't be in there that are. And so with that, we'll be able to show that these are an artificially made stone, essentially. And what does that
Some
mean
type of
for
geopolymer.
Mesoamerica and some of these blocks and sites like in Bolivia with oh, what
Peru
is
as
it
well,
there?
yeah.
The H blocks there in was it not
It,
Oishi Tempo?
No,
um,
it's a
uh,
Tiwanaku and
Tiwanaku. Yeah, yeah,
Pupuko,
yeah.
yeah.
there we go. Tiwanaku.
Pumapunku, yes. That's there's real evidence of this, and I've seen this before there. Specifically, they find hairs and certain things inside of these H blocks that just shouldn't be there. And while we haven't found any hairs like that I know of, the fact that these pieces aren't porous all the way through, and we're seeing it on these edges, tells me that it went through a period where it definitely had air bubbles coming to the surface, and or at some point. And if you look at a lot of the carvings, this was something when we took it to a lab, we had these carvings analyzed, and they're all very, very you know, smooth and wet like and very ornamental in terms of there's not any mistakes or anything like that we can see with this type of line. And so if they were forming this like out of a geopolymer, like you said, and they were carving it while it was still drying, then they could easily get this type of look, first of all. And then second of all, they could also fix it if they messed up because it would still be drawing. So being able to, you know, smooth it out and reapply the carving lines would be totally doable. And how they got some of these still is a total mystery because of the precision, like on those green statues and things of that nature. But at least on these pieces from Tula and Abuelos, it definitely would add up for the reason why we see some of them in this form and carved to such a ridiculous, like these boxes and certain vessels, the pitchers and stuff. I mean, that's just not something you would see carved out of stone. The same with the skull whistles and things like that. They just, I've
Yeah,
got
do
one
you
skull
mind
whistle
actually
that
showing some of those for new
yeah,
viewers?
yeah.
Because you've got just an immense collection with several crystal skulls that are also flutes or like musical instruments.
Yeah, you can
Um,
see that the eyes are. or it's all hollow inside of here. I mean, all the way through and inside of there deeply. And so it makes a lot of sense, like how the teeth were done and how these intricate 3D type carvings were put onto here. If it was wet when they did it.
Right? Like just wild instrument, and that if it was cast, it makes a lot more sense of how they would have been able
Yeah,
to
like
do
way
it
up in
new.
there, you know what I mean? Like, why? Why would you do this? All the way into the see-through. I mean, but if you could cut it and yeah, it just makes a lot of sense. So I don't know. We're gonna find out for sure in terms of, this is gonna have to be reviewed and looked at by a lot of different people, and just like anything, it's gonna take probably a bunch of time. But I think that this is probably the closest way of seeing that. These were made with a technology that we don't necessarily have today. And
Well,
and the
that
big
that
one is the
that piece
granite.
is that piece is amazing because it has harmonics and it's
But do you mind?
yeah.
Are you able to
Sound
show the
sound
others? Like
sound
you have several.
fluidity is kind of an interesting key right
Yeah, one
there.
of them's in the safe here. Let me grab it here.
Fair.
Hang on one sec here. I'll be
Okay.
right back.
And for those unaware, it's like he's got several of these flute skull pieces, as well as I believe at least one, but maybe two now of what appear to be telescopes potentially, or um, with these crystal lenses in them, as well as uh, hundreds, if not in the thousands now, of these different geopolymer, most likely the majority of these artifacts, as that I believe at least half or so glow in the dark or phosphorescent, have these characteristics that it's mind blowing.
Oh, while we're waiting, I'm going to give a shout out to Rob Potter, who passed away on Monday. He was super influential in the Conscious Life community. He helped foment Conscious Life Expo, did a lot of Shasta events, and he passed away on Monday. And so, blessings to Rob Potter. Love that guy. He was, yeah, very amazing character.
All
That's
right,
very fun
fellas.
to hear.
I'm back. Almost. All right. I had to
Very
dig deep
nice.
for that one. This is the special one though, so I made sure to grab the good one because when I got this, I went around asking geologists like, how is this possible? It's two separate stones, like this and this. How? Did they put this together
They're
somehow?
fused. Weird. All right.
Pretty good
But if
evidence
it's
right there.
cast, if it's poured, it makes better sense. And how did they hollow it out to such perfect?
Like,
Like that's
it just
wild.
makes sense. Yeah. A lot of detail, a lot of finite things that just, I don't think you can really get very easily. And it's the same with those walls and stuff down there in OIT Tempo. Like, how would you get these up on this hillside? 20-ton bricks, all one after another for
No,
thousands. But,
they're 80-ton stones at Ayante Tambo, and they're all quarried from the
okay.
mountain across the river, the Urubambo, which is a massively raging river. And outside of the what they call the lazy stone, which is one that's just sitting on the pathway, the question is, how did they move 80-ton? Again, 100 tons is 200,000 pounds. So you'd need like 2,000 people moving this
Yeah.
down
And
the
the
mountain, across the river, and up the next
Back up.
mountain, 2,000 feet to Tambo. How are they doing this?
Yeah.
It's
If
the
they
it's
it's
crushed all the
it's
thing that
rock
it's
makes
one
down
of
at the
these
sense.
things that
site,
really is mind-boggling.
they,
Yeah.
they,
So
they core
what
out
makes
the.
sense though is that it was uh chipped, or not chipped down, ground down into the
Yep.
powdered cement as like dust, just like we do with cement
No,
today.
these
And
these
you carry it over and you then cast it.
these these are all solid stone. They're not mesomorphic or
Yeah, it's called scoliosis,
You know the durite the
scaliola.
durite sculptures in
they're a
Egypt.
solid stone, and so that to me is the one thing that really blows me about Ollantaytambo, is because across the river, 2,000 feet up on the mountainside is the quarry. So they're bringing these stones down at 100 tons or 80 tons. A lot of them are 80 tons. They're moving them across the river and then back up to the other mountain. How? They're not recreating this through polymorphic situations. These are all solid pieces, and that to me is one of the most amazing things. Sexy
We
Woman's
we
a whole different story.
we
We can get into
what's
that.
really interesting about this is that I realized the solid stone thing, and how do you tell if it's a solid stone, if it was a polymer that was made in a way that we don't understand? And so it could be in this case,
Well,
because there's a gentleman.
they see the matrix of the stone and where it came from. That's how
What
they
I'm
know
trying
it's
what I'm trying to
solid.
quote here is that there's a gentleman who is taking and crushing down a durite and basalt and then reforming it and letting it dry, and then he's sticking swords in it in his backyard and letting people try to pull these out, and it's just not happening. And so the fact he's doing this with durite and basalt, it tells me that he has the ability to do this with solid stone. And is it going to leave this perfect trace? I don't know how exactly they can do this. It's just like the pyramids with going down the Nile and then having to come back up. Like, why would they go up the Nile with blocks, right? I mean, obviously, if it ran the other direction, maybe, but at the same point, and no difference than
Having been to
Stonehenge,
Giza
right?
and seen the Great Pyramid, the structures inside of the Great Pyramid that are granite are solid. They're not geomorphic. Period. They're not.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
this is a
And
different
so that
and
that to me is so mind-boggling. It's like, how are you
yeah,
moving 100-ton stones up the river from the quarry in Aswan? Because the quarry sits like 2 kilometers from the river, and you've got to remove half of a mountain with a lot of these things to move them down to the river. Well, if you know anything about buoyancy on a raft, you're going to put 100 tons on a raft, that thing's going to fall into the river. But when they
it's just
dredged the river to do the Aswan quarry, they found no refuse at the bottom of the river, and so they had to figure it
wasn't
out
that.
something.
Yeah.
Levitation, sound, vibration, who knows? There's
Yeah.
a lot of interesting concepts there.
And then you still have the polishing and the cutting that has to occur,
Oh,
which is a
after the
whole
fact,
nother,
yeah. And that happens
yeah.
at the
And the
site,
fitting,
which is,
you know,
yeah.
the fitting's a weird one for me of how they got it so perfect. I mean,
So
even
I
if you were using a 60-point mass system, like this is still
I
so
I
perfect.
look at a site like Saxo Woman outside of Cusco, and I've gone back and forth. Was this poured into bags and then they just burn the bags off, which would create this calcification on the surface, or were these actually fitted structures?
Yeah. They didn't
And
need molds.
when
This
when
was like
when
a
when
clay, I
no, when
think.
Yusuf and I were there, we looked at one wall, and he looked at me and I looked at him. We were late for the bus, and Yusuf said this would have to have been all put up in one structure.
Hmm.
And I was like, how are they doing this? Because they're not doing it the way that we're being told through history, for
Uh-uh.
sure.
You familiar with the coral gardens down there in
Of course. Yeah,
Florida?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's an interesting one because it's all this coral and stuff. So I don't think it was completely
But coral doesn't
cast.
weigh hundreds of tons.
No, but some of those blocks are like 40 tons though that he lifted up on top of there.
True. Yeah.
So somehow he figured it out in some aspects of how they were doing this
So
in that.
this could all be cement work. Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
agree.
and the fact they use shells and they find these shells in the limestone bricks there in Egypt. Um, it's an interesting ingredient to try
Actually, Woman
to
is
do
one of the
this with.
most
Yeah, yeah.
weirdest spots I've been to, because
That is super weird.
these are massive, and you have scoop marks on the surfaces of them, like we're seeing here.
Uh,
And so that's not indicative of something that's been poured into a bag, but the way they fit together, is very much something that could be a geopolymer.
Yeah.
However, how do you do geopolymer of andesite? It's
It's
difficult.
just it's just like
The
that.
It's
What we found it. We found
recrystallization.
granite.
and this site here, yeah. This is at this is at Machu Picchu actually, or a site similar. But you walk through these structures and you're like, there's no way that these people were cutting this, but they obviously did, and they all fit perfectly
Yeah.
together. This is not geopolymer.
And the evidence of the lack of polishing devices, I think, is really the big thing too. Is they had a way of smoothing and flattening something
Go
in a
go back
way
to
that
that
we don't
photo,
know.
Bernie. Go back to the photo. The one you were just at. Sorry. Keep going.
That one?
Up, up,
Keep
up,
going.
up, up, up. No, up, up.
This one.
No, it's the one above that.
I think
Yep.
that's the top
So
one.
that one. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So here you have three different aspects of the history of Peru. So you have the stone underneath, which is I think Anan Pacha. Then you have the Inca rebuild, which is that shoddy rock in the middle, and then
Yep.
you have the structures stuff on top of it, which is Kanan Pacha. So they're either using the natural rock formations and they're cutting that down. So that's not obviously geopolymer. And the stuff above it is also not geopolymer either. And so they were cutting these things to fit. And when you're in Cusco and you see the Inca Roca wall and you see where the earthquake has broken it apart, all of it has scoop marks up into it, so it all fits together like a Lego piece or a
Right.
jigsaw
It's got the
puzzle.
it's got the nubs.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah.
beside the nubs, a lot of them don't, and so you're
Oh.
looking at something that
Hmm.
actually fits together based on how it's cut, not how it's formed. So there's some interesting aspects to this because there's certain stones you cannot form. There's other stones you can, obviously.
Right. And that's just with what we know.
Well,
We're still
obviously,
learning so much.
none of us lived there at that point in
Yeah.
time, and yeah,
Yeah. A lot of lost recipes in the past for sure.
my cat is going ballistic right now. Anyway,
That will happen. Yeah. So it's like, but it also, there's evidence that there was multiple different civilizations and layers of these advanced former civilizations with one, like if there was the ones that did the carvings, were they after or before the polymer is the question.
Yeah.
and was there polymer at these sites? These are also the question. So
Yes. And
limestone,
I
I
believe
understand because it already is a pormephic structure.
I
You
believe
can
Absolutely.
we're gonna
you
tell.
can rebuild limestone in whatever shape you want. The French geologists proved this,
Yeah.
but some of the harder stones, I'm very
That
skeptical about that.
that's
How
why
do you
it's
do
one
that?
it's one thing on the limestones, but the granite was the big one, and the diorite, obviously, with what that guy was working on there in France. Um, yeah, seeing that.
He never was able to do diorite or any of the harder structures. He was only to do limestone because you can
No,
break it apart
I'm talking
and
about
you
the
can
guy in
re.
France.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the same guy. And he could only do it with
Well,
a
this guy had
specific.
swords in diorite and in uh, basalt. I saw both were tested, so I'll have to double check on that to make sure. And
Yeah, please share
I'll
that because I've never
yeah,
seen this. Yeah.
yeah. This was recently.
Hmm.
Yeah, if that's possible, that gives me a plausibility to understand those diorite statues in Egypt, because those things blow me away of how smooth they are. You know what I mean?
Oh, but they're not just smooth. They're
proportion.
Either they're molded
God,
or you can't mold something like
that
that with human hand. Sorry,
y-
they're Christopher Dunn did some amazing research on a lot of this, and he's like, "Oh my God, the radiuses of these is unbelievable.
yes,
There's no way you could do this without a
just
CNC
like those
machine."
vases. Those vases
Yeah.
are just insane.
Well, we have bases in the Nubian Museum that are 14,000 or 1400 BC.
Yeah.
So no, beyond that. Sorry, 14,000 BC. So it's like, holy
Wow.
shit, how are they doing this
Yeah.
when we don't have the technology? And not
Bingo.
only that, they're electricizing gold to them
Hmm.
on all the structures. What are you showing here, Bernie? Sorry. Anyway,
Yeah, Mike,
These are
what is
some.
it?
These are some spheres. So one of my closest trusty people down there that have been doing digs and whatnot in Tula sent me a message last night that they had found these, and so I got them coming. We're gonna test them. No idea. Don't really
what
have a
are they
lot to
made
say
from? Do
about
you
it.
know?
No idea. He has no idea either. Like they just found them, and he's like, "I want you to have them so you can get them tested." So we're gonna find out. I'll take them to the XRF as soon as we get them.
It's
There's that
hard to
one that they
test
found in
something that
Colombia.
doesn't have a matrix inside of it that you can test. So
I just want to
that's
see what the
all.
surface is in terms of XRF for if there's any alloys that we can recognize or what's putting it together, and then we'll go from there on it. But
So,
if it's
question:
stainless steel, I mean, I'm
how
not
are
going to buy
you
it.
how are you finding these digs,
Exactly, right?
funding these digs? What's going on here?
Well, I've got a team of probably about 50 people now with multiple billionaires and multiple people who have a lot of money who want to know the truth. And so we can fund pretty much whatever we need to fund at this point. And now it's just a matter of getting the institutions and the overall, um, group of scientists to actually do their job and do the science rather than just pass off something before doing any scientific research. That's the biggest thing. Is so many people can naysay this and be like, "Oh, it doesn't," but where's
I
your
would
science?
No, but I would like to see these digs when they first start versus
Yeah, I mean, go
three
for it.
quarters of the way through it. It's to me that's there's issues, especially when they're using shovels. What? Come on.
Yeah, these people actually work for the INAH, believe it or not. The INAH, the Institute of National Archaeology and Anthropology in Mexico, showed up to Tula doing an investigation and questioned multiple people looking for these people. So it's really funny that if this was just some bullshit hoax, that they would have the INAH show up with helicopters and in full armed gear, just for the fun of it, right?
Go back a couple. Yeah, oh, it's that one, but go back to it where it is. Yeah, it's that one. Interesting.
And we've had a lot of these dated now. We can date these because the C is true north. So you're able to date, and some of them have really precise dates, and other ones are in like a 600 to 1,000 year window, but very common around the
What is the script on it? Do we even know?
1,000 to 3,500 BC. The scripts are all
No.
proto. They're not related to any current dialects that we have. However, AI is able to analyze the overall like patterns and algorithms or whatever it knows of the current ones from Iraq and utilize the constellation layouts and get an accurate date based off of that. It's a
Interesting.
mathematical formulation. All those little marks are astronomical math. And so it was able to pick up on that. And it said that it was sure within 90% that this was something of authenticity or authentic because that the complex math that it was able to see on this is not something that was just put there by someone random. Like it took extensive knowledge of the sky and the cosmos to be able to make that like that.
Plus,
At
you
least that's
have
what the AI said. I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
I've
no,
never
and
made one myself,
that's
but
the other one. Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah. It came up
That's
with
the
all that just off of that picture too, and even just like this picture here with the luminescence, I used that to show it the symbols, and it came up with these dates with no other pictures or anything at all. It's crazy.
100% star map. They're wild.
Yeah. So I
That's
think
other.
AI is going to help us really start to understand the complexity of this in terms of the significance of different symbology and how it's relating to what we know and beyond that. Like the tablets that surround this dig are absolutely. I haven't released them yet, and boy oh boy, I think I showed a couple of you, maybe Bernie, but they tell quite the story. There's going to be a full documentary from the start to the bottom. We've got about 12 hours of footage that we're compacting down. So this isn't all we have, Hans. Luckily in this case, and it starts from the GPR scan. And in fact, this property is a piece of private property, and they're actually looking for it right now. That's why we haven't released anything else really further from this, because we're waiting to kind of see what the INH does, because we were under the impression that this was all fake. And so if they're going to do a real investigation and this is real, then
They have
obviously
to, yeah, for
this is
sure.
no longer our business, and I have to step back and I'm done, right? Like I'm not going to be doing this anymore because I'm
You're
not a
not
professional.
spending, yeah, you're not spending
As
money
soon as I
in
know
these
it's legit, I know it's
archaeological digs.
legit. Like this is it, right? I'll still continue to be an advocate for what I know, but at the same point, like yeah, I'm not going to continue to fund digs that are BS. Like I only tried to prove this for the truth, and if we get to that point, then that's where we're at. So it's interesting. I don't know. That thing weighs over 3 ton now, so the fact they got it 10 feet into the ground had to have taken probably some sort of serious effort if that's what would occurred. And I also talked to a
Agreed.
gentleman who does concrete, like walls and fittings and stuff like that. And he said that the way that those are set into there and like the precision to get them to lay equal all the way in a square like that is extremely challenging. He said because it has to hold that
That's
whole
mind
amount of
blowing.
dirt and stuff, you know.
Look forward to seeing the full
It's definitely
documentary.
not done by some novice, that's for sure.
It's fascinating. And the fact
Interesting.
that Klaus, Donna, and Nassim Harriman have never spoken about these
Nor would
artifacts
they.
or finds since. No, no, since they came out in 2012 with it, they were the original source that I saw with the first batch of these.
Yeah, I've actually and heard from both of them recently regarding this actually, and there's a lot of stuff that's being worked on. I mean, just because you don't hear about it doesn't mean that there's not effort being made. Unfortunately, all these Gaia type networks are trying to take this and run 15 seasons with it, and unfortunately, this is not something that we're going to try to profit off of like Skinwalker Ranch. Like this needs to come to the truth, and I don't think that they're willing to bring that because it puts in jeopardy many of the programs and many of the things that they've spent a lot of money to try to put forth into action. And so
Exactly.
it's going to take a transitional period to get to this. And I think the people who are controlling these networks and controlling this are also the people who are trying to suppress this topic, who are also trying to suppress the Nazca mummies and all this stuff that comes back to they're trying to make us think it's ET, just like the movie ET with the Nazca mummies with 3 fingers, right? They're trying to make us think that they're from other planets and whatnot, but in reality, this is
This
like
could be
multi-dimensional. It's
just
portals.
us. Yeah, it's portals. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that whole thing with Nikola Tesla, how he was talking to aliens and getting on the verge of this free energy, I think he was right on the edge of this. Aleister Crowley's work falls hand in hand with all of this as well, where he picked up his alien and all the people who followed him, like L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology and Walt Disney, and you look at Disney's movies and how they interact with things, and it's like
Nothing. Tra la la.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's
So
crazy. I always
that's
wondered
a
this, you
flute.
know.
Oh wow, that's
No,
really
that's a pipe,
interesting.
actually. Yeah, so you can
Yeah,
smoke out of
no,
that thing.
yeah, but you could also use it as a flute because
Uh-uh.
there's multiple
The
portals.
no, the holes go and hold it onto a base, and then it stands up with another piece that is literally balancing to hold an additional piece, and this piece has a joint coming out of its mouth and goes into the snake's mouth, and then its tail goes into another snake's mouth, and it all sits there and balances together, and so you can actually you can have 2 people smoke off of it at the same time. It's quite the piece, man. I have pictures of it in my
So
book
what
and
are
on
the
my
open
website.
holes for?
That's to
That
hold the
would.
thing in place onto the base. There's 3 holes to hold it in place. That
Ah,
because it has to
gotcha.
hold the other balancing pieces, so that's what holds it all steady.
I would look at that as like a flute where you could close those holes and create different tones. But
I did get this flute though, and this is really interesting. It's a copper flute. Um, really, really interesting. It's got a lot of manganese deposits on it, which is what you would want to see, right? Like this black stuff here. But it also inside of here, let me see if I can get the light just right. There's green oxidation
Oxide.
all over on the inside of this thing. But listen to how beautiful this sounds. Oops, sorry. Oh, I'm doing this all wrong. I'm nervous.
mm,
It sounds pretty good though.
It
And
does.
it's like the way the whistles are laid here. You can see the way the back is put on here. Very interesting. It's a piece of stone in there, probably a geopolymer like this blue stone here. I think they're very similar in terms of how they're
yes,
made.
yeah.
And they also they glow red, which is interesting with the phosphorescence and the geopolymer theory. We got some of these bracelets here that are, I
So what?
believe it's either
Why do the
ivory or,
geopolymers glow? That's my curiosity.
well, have you ever used a two-part epoxy where they
Yeah,
heat up and create that same with two-part like
but you would have to
resin
have a
that you
phosphorescence somewhere in the matrix to make
In
that
no, no,
happen.
no.
between.
No, the petroleum compounds or the bond that's created creates this low level emission or whatnot, where the electrons get excited when you hit it with the black light. And this happens with all kinds of different glues. A lot of glues you can shine a black light on and see they turn blue. But in this case, there's in some two parts, like the resin that we were making, we would see some phosphorescence in them. So when I was making the
Interesting.
replicas for it, we were getting, results that were similar to these pieces in terms, because I was putting the luminescent material on there as well. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Do you want to? Are you able to show some of the phosphorescent effects?
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
Well,
give us a show,
right.
mate.
Yeah,
Exactly. Take a
hang on
look. Here
here.
we go.
I'm gonna go offline so you can do this, since Bernie, you obviously
Oh
have
yeah,
some. Wow.
amazing.
What about you're mentioning red glowing, red
Hmm.
phosphorescence?
Yeah, look at this guy here.
What? All right.
And the red doesn't last as
It
long.
doesn't last very long, but it is there. Wow.
Oh, it's there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is
And the
also
yellow,
red.
some have yellow too, some with blue. It's wild. Look at that
What
one.
the fuck? Sorry, pardon my French.
Right?
Anyway.
Oh wow. Oh, you got a light under that one. I got you.
Yeah, she's over here glowing. Look at this thing.
There's red, green.
Yeah, this one here is like green and red.
Oh, that's wild.
Pretty wild for sure. This thing here, when I turn the light back on, you can see like the matrix that was
Oh,
used to do it is just wild.
Hmm. So I have on my
mind
arm
blowing.
a piece of glass from Okinawa. It's called Okinawan glass. Hold on, come back on camera. So this green piece here also has a phosphorescent aspect to it.
Huh.
They
Interesting.
call it Okinawan glass. It comes from Okinawa. So yeah,
I wonder if it was from the volcano or something that caused
I'm very curious about
yeah.
it as well. I need to ask
Hmm.
my.
See, when I started researching these glows and finding experts on phosphorescence and luminescence is so uncommon, I was so shocked that it's not really a field that's very researched out there. it's like a byproduct of certain fields and certain knowledge, but it's not something that's like extensively attempted to be harnessed or researched
No.
beyond what we know for the most part. So yeah, it's mostly the petroleum companies that find out stuff about it because they're doing, odd refineries, which is interesting because refineries and petroleum products and super glues, that's how we got all these cyanoacrylics. And
As you're
again,
drinking from acrylic bottle.
no pun intended, right? Gosh. Yeah, go figure. But I think that we see this
I
type of
would be
alchemy,
drinking from your like the cups and like
So I've
chalices
got
that
my
you've gotten.
my jar.
If I, man, you're wild. What is that?
it's got a control deck. I mean,
Right? What?
and it's a whistle, by the way. Yeah, check
What?
this one out. This one's crazy.
That's controlling the sound.
Oh, sorry.
Hard
So
to
it gets
hear,
dirt.
but
It's
yeah.
like got dirt in there, so I really need to take a canned air to it and like blow it out. But yeah, it's pretty cool for a piece of
Every piece
spaceship,
is mind-boggling.
I
Or
told my wife, I'm like,
a sound ship. Yeah.
yeah. Told the wife I wasn't going to buy any more pieces, and then that thing came, and whoops.
Oh,
If you guys
beautiful.
ever want to have
Uh,
tea,
I'm
here we
coming to your
go.
house, my brother.
Absolutely.
We're coming north. We're going
Yeah,
your
look, this
direction.
thing here was really cool. It's got like a abalone encrusted all the way around, and it's bronze. It's like a ball. Not sure what it was used
Fascinating.
for. Yeah, lots of bronze lately. This bracelet is I think ivory, and then the inside is bronze. I'm gonna get this tested here, but you can like rotate it and it
Yeah,
creates
that's
like different
Mastodon.
pictures and stuff. They're all the aliens, but just different
Wild.
versions or something,
Are they aliens? That's the key.
Well, what we know as aliens, like I said earlier, the ET ultra dimensional factor, I think, if this shit really is real and people like Spielberg and Lucas and some of these guys, whether they tapped their third eye like Matt Groening in The Simpsons, or whether they're being fed this information to mislead us, one way or another, it's coming through here, and we see this eye on all these pieces. So I'm guessing that there's something more to the imagination than what we understand, and like maybe things getting downloaded and seeded is a real deal. And so people like these actor or these act not actors but directors rather um,
Actors,
are
yeah.
yeah, or
Yeah,
writers or
producers,
whoever
yeah,
they
right.
are, I mean, whatever. But yeah, I just wonder because seeing Spielberg's third encounters or close encounters of the third kind and
Well,
obviously
that was
ET.
Project Seppo or whatever that was. That
his,
was
his interest in this topic is deep, and the fact that he nailed the three fingers and the Nazca mummy so close to Maria with the very long fingers and the shape of the head and stuff like that, it's a pretty insane coincidence that we find these bodies that date back 1800 years with metal implants of osmium in them um, here in 2020 or 2017 or whatever. I mean, great way to look at the future for sure.
somehow they knew.
That's or just you speak things into the existence and all these different sayings
Comes out
of
of ether, Akashic
yeah,
records,
there
so to
might be
speak.
something there. I don't know. I'd love to sit down and get an off the grid conversation with some of these guys just to kind of see what the hell they feel about this shit. Yeah.
I'll
And
be
it's
back.
the
Hold on a sec.
symbols that are so fascinating, as a lot of them are like alchemical proto, like Egyptian and petroglyphic. and that
Yeah,
you got
that one was actually
Author.
translated. I'm gonna read it to you here because I've got it on my phone real quick.
Yes,
Um,
please.
yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. It was one of the very first ones I did was this pyramid. And I did the entire pyramid because I was very curious, just what we were looking at, and it had a lot of language as well as a lot of depictions. And what it shows is it shows Horus on this side, it shows DNA with two winged beings on the other side, and then it shows Saturn with the other planets, and on the other side it shows a being with with an all-seeing eye and a long tail. But what's interesting is it's all 3D and hollowed out, and if you open up the pyramid on the inside, there's a house cat. And the house cat is a really interesting thing because, you know, it's the only feline with the eyes like a lizard or a reptile. And so
Indeed.
Anunnaki did a lot of hybridizations in a lot of things. There's the manticore, the griffin, obviously all these different multiple species creations. And so we think that this pyramid might be showing like the grace and the power of them creating the house cat to help man, because it literally shows the DNA and everything. And if it's the Anunnaki that did this and they have the reptilian genetics, it's
So
interesting. Also
looking at that's actually Horus. So
right.
even more interesting.
Yeah, and the relation with the birds and the reptiles is also a very interesting thing too, because they say a lot of the birds came from the dinosaurs in terms of DNA, and the avians are very interesting because they're found also in biblical texts as well as helpful messengers to the heavens, and that's kind of how the Sumerians look at them as well. And then if you look at not Brahma, it's I'm gonna butcher it. It's a Hindu
Ahara.
god that looks like the bird.
Oh, I got that wrong. I
I know I'm gonna get it wrong too. I just had it too. But regardless, there's a bird deity there that goes with that trinity, and I think that there might be some relation because they all have the same messenger of the heavens type of a title to them. You know.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, it says this side emphasizes cosmic motherhood, eternal life, and royal rebirth. Through Horus, it flows with the other side's themes of divine protection, spiritual awakening, and celestial
Garuda is who
wisdom.
you're thinking of. So
And
yeah.
and the specific translate, because it says the bird mutt and the water glyph suggest birth from the primordial waters. The anchor reinforces the eternal life motif. The mountain horizon symbol implies this is not just about geography, it's referencing ascension, the afterlife, and the soul's journey. And it says the complete translation is the sacred mother brings life from the waters to the eternal mountain of light.
So there's a glyph very similar to this, with the wings spread at the temple of Seti in Abydos
Hmm,
in Egypt, and it's the only glyph you'll ever see in Egypt. But it's a winged man, and yeah,
interesting.
very similar.
Wow. Huh. Cool. Have
But
you
it
been
doesn't
to
have the head of Horus. It's a head of a man.
interesting. Huh. Wow. Have you been to those catacombs over there in Alexandria?
I've not been to Alexandria. Sorry.
Oh wow. So there's these catacombs there, and deep down in there there's all these tunnels and stuff, and there's what look like Naga or Egyptian snakes with serpent-like bodies, and I was blown away to see this. It's one of the that's known as one of the wonders of the world now, or of the modern world.
So the Naga are interesting because they protect the earthly realm in the Mount Meru experience. So Mount Meru is a multi-level dimensional portal.
Hmm.
It goes from the base chakra of Shambhala all the way to the top of Mount Meru as a dimensional portal. Mount Meru is obviously a very physical mountain, but the Nagas are the ones that protect the earthly realm, and so I've
Hmm.
always found that fascinating. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah,
Half
that
serpent or
makes
half dragon, half
that is.
human. Yeah.
bingo. You hit that on the head, right? I keep seeing the dragon pop up here a lot, and obviously with the Anunnaki thinking of this primordial dragon and seeing a lot of this, I can't help but think that that might be logical. I mean, we are obviously made in the image of, is what many texts say, and the fact we have this scaly skin and certain attributes with us. It's definitely interesting. You look at the octopus too, and how the octopus genetics were found in the fossil record and how they just show up randomly, almost like it was like an alien seed. The
It's
scientists
funny
really
you
can't
mentioned the
explain it.
octopus because we don't share any DNA with the octopus, period.
Right. Yeah. And we see all these beings with the Davy Jones octopus face, and we see different evolutions of them. Some of them, I'll show you one here, for example.
Fascinating.
So this one here,
This
he's
is
holding the
interesting.
trident, and he's got the double finned tail, which there's a conspiracy type video on the internet of this Russian mermaid that was supposedly found, and it had a weird double tail like this, which I thought was very interesting. But this guy here, he doesn't have the tentacle face exposed because he's got this. You can see the lines here, but this is like a braided thing, like the pharaohs wear in Egypt, but it's braided tentacles or a garment over the top of his tentacles, and some of them are exposed
So,
on some
so
of these
this gets
pieces.
into the Cthulhu myth, and
Right.
weirdly, the Cthulhu myth came out of Lovecraft, 100%.
Hmm.
And there's a couple of pieces I think that you have that show Cthulhu, and I'm like, that to me is weird
Yeah.
because that's not
I'm
that's
gonna take
not
this down.
a mythology. It's a invented
It doesn't
mythology.
have it.
So
Well, that's invented in terms of just like Steven Spielberg with E.T. and just like Matt Groening with the 18,000 things that he has predicted with The Simpsons that have come true in an eerie way. I mean, no one's going to deny that he's
well,
had an eerie.
Groening's Groening's been let into the secrets for sure.
I don't even want to get into that side of it. I'm just saying that with this Lovecraft type of people, with Stanley Kubrick, with these minds that have heavy imaginations, they are connected with their pineal gland to something bigger, and that bigger something seems to be influencing all of these things. And so to think that just like Baphomet with the 1300s and that being the first time that Baphomet was depicted. But the thing is, the gentleman there in France that came up with that illustration, he used all of the words and all of the descriptions from the ancient text to create that illustration. So the fact that his illustration looks similar to the one that we find in Mexico doesn't mean that it was only created in the 1300s, just like Lady Guadalupe. I mean, just because they first documented it in the 1300s doesn't mean she wasn't supported back 200 AD. It's just
Correct.
that there wasn't any internet then, and the way things were documented during the yeah, it's deep. Check this out. It's got metal inlaid into the stone.
Wow. That's an interesting one.
Isn't that a trip? And I haven't got it XRF. I'm going to take it over there. Once those balls come, I'm going to take a whole load over and get this stuff checked. But yeah, pretty interesting. It's got the Lamassu
Flip it around
Griffin.
again. Let's see the front. Yeah. Wow. What? I thought. Sorry, pardon my French.
No, I said the
Seriously.
same thing when I saw it. And then what the heck is this
Wow.
thing? Like,
Right?
okay. And so we did a translation on these pieces with about 150 of these put into one conversation and Grok, and we asked it what the pine cones represented, and it said that it represented a seed pod and that the handbags were the carrying bag for the seed pods. So kind of an
Interesting.
interesting take on it that it would come up with that. But yeah, we also find pieces with them
That's
picking the pine
interesting you
cone
say
off of
that
a tree of
because
life.
I've always wondered about the handbags, and they are carrying the seeds, obviously,
Right.
and they're
That's
carrying the seeds through humanity, and it's like, hey, this is what's going to rebirth humanity at some point, is our seeds. So
yeah,
wow,
full circle.
full circle, exactly.
And when there's
Interesting.
pictures of them picking the pine cones off of the tree of life, um, which is also interesting too, because that would be. make a lot of sense. It explains in the Bible that it's like a date tree or a palm tree. But what's interesting with the the depiction of some of these is they look like almost like pineapples in terms of the shape and how they're depicted. And so we wonder if there's some sort of you know cross contamination in the Bible of how it was translated in terms of the date tree or the depictions
Well,
of
the
it.
Bible is from the Greeks, and the Greeks misconstrued everything,
Right,
even Egyptian history. I mean,
right.
most of the
That,
Egyptian history that we know today comes from the Greeks, but there's a history before that.
big
And
time, like all
I
the stuff
talk a
about
lot about
chemics.
that. Yeah, I talk a lot about that. It's
Me
like
too.
the Greeks
Yeah.
misconstrued everything. Yeah.
That's why I attack the translation, because it's not necessarily like there was someone in there doing it on purpose per se. I mean, there might have been in some cases, but just the way the language is all mesh and how confusing it really is, especially the Hebrew stuff to the Greek, and when you lose all that gematria, it becomes like it's like sending someone a text message versus giving them a voice memo. Like, you can hear so much more energy and love when the voice memo, but the text is just like, what?
So I always tell people the word pharaoh is so misconstrued. There were no male pharaohs in ancient Egypt, period. The word pharaoh comes from the word perah. So
Mm.
perah means the high house of the woman. Okay.
I didn't know that. Wow. Mm.
So the priestesses would choose their consort, and you always see them holding their arms around their male consort. I chose him
Mhm.
because they would choose their consort, and the women would rule over the fertility of the land and the fertility of the people, and their consort, the king, would rule over the physicality of the land and the physicality of the people. So that was the matriarchy unity project
Yep.
that would happen. And the Greeks saw it all as patrilineage, and it's really sad. It's like it's right there in front of you if you choose to research it.
Bingo. Yep. And it always has been, and I think it's just been in too many fragments to put it all together. And I think we're getting close with AI being able to ask questions to a PhD level person. I mean, even if it's wrong half the
Still,
time, like,
AI is sorry. It's fucked. We can't rely on it. I'm just gonna say that.
no. But what we can do is we can ask for its opinion, and we can't rely on priests and we can't
We
rely
can't
on
rely
professors
on
either,
any. Yeah,
because they
exactly.
could be wrong, they could be biased, they could be sold out, just like the
True.
AI. However, we can ask it for free, and we can't ask a PhD for free. And so when we can ask 10 different AIs for an opinion, and then we
But
reverse engineer all those
we
opinions,
can
you can
ask
come
a
up with an
PhD
answer.
for free.
Huh?
I said we can ask a PhD for
Not
free.
all of them,
Not all of them, and
but
not
maybe
all
some.
AI.
Yeah.
Correct.
but
So
but they're not going to pump you out at
AI
two
can get
o'clock
it
in the
wrong, and
morning.
that's where I have issues with AI. It's
So can
like,
the professor.
of course, no
Yeah, and
problem
and
there.
and 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 what's interesting is when you have multiple AI models that can
But the
compare the same
professor has
thing
more of
to
an
the
intellect than AI does, and
for now.
that's also yeah. Well, for now,
It's just an
yeah.
additional tool. It's an additional
It
tool.
is. And I tell people to that way as well. Like, imagine a professor. He's got 5 or 10 TAs. When you're dealing with a professor, oftentimes you're dealing with his TAs first. And so a TA and an AI bot isn't so much a difference, because you have to trust both of them anyways, and you have to kind of backtrack their work, both of them, because you can't fully trust them. Because if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. So there's
Yep.
this whole thing, but it is like Bernie says, it's a tool that I use just to ask
Oh,
certain
we've all
questions
used
that I
it
can
now.
compare.
Simple
Yeah.
questions. They're correct.
Yep. It's good on that. Put this thing away.
These are fascinating. I can't get enough of these different runes.
Yeah, that one, the translation was just bizarre on. I mean, it named three things that really were peculiar to me. First off, it named the Watchers by name. It named what's called a twin luminary, and it also said that that they spoke in words of fire. from looking at this picture. And when it says they spoke from words of fire, I'm looking at this like, how on earth did you get that from this? And it talks about how it received it from this language down there and how it compared it with these other pictograms of early proto-Sinaitic and all this stuff to come up with this words of fire. But if you know the Hebrew language, you know the Tibetan language, they both use fire letters, and it's very important. And so it's interesting that they
But
spoke the words of fire.
none of these glyphs are known. So
They're not known, but however, there's a lot of pictograms and a lot of glyphs in the world that are known. And so the AI takes these and says, and I mean, it breaks it down how it did it for you, but it tells you that it saw the corresponding geometry with this and curved lines with this and a snake that comes out. Like it breaks it down in a way that, I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but again, it's just like we were just talking with the AI. It's an interesting input to have someone trying to come up with a translation of anything, because I couldn't come up with shit based off of this, let alone how I got there. You know what I mean? It's just too much jumble. Like that don't make no sense to
Stop
me.
there.
oh, I agree. No,
There's no
interesting.
phonetics there, but the fact that it even tried is bizarre to me. And I definitely will continue to add a lot of research into that and trying to understand if it's just pulling shit out of its butt or if it's real translations, because what it's saying is I mean, the fact it came up with fire letters blew my mind, or words of fire rather, just didn't make sense how it could even perceive that from that. Unless again it's
Very
fueled by
intriguing so
some
far.
religious cult that it's like trying to convince us that the Bible's real or something through the AI. I mean, who knows, right? Got to use discernment, but dang.
It's
Yeah.
intriguing, and
You want to
how it keeps turning out is just mind blowing.
check out this hair clip in this box that we got?
You said that was like 70 tons or something like that. Oh, I was saying the box in the video. Anyway.
That pretty wild.
What
Not
is
Like
that made
70,
from?
it's
Sorry, what is
3 or
sorry.
these are
That's
copper here, I believe, or copper and zinc, most likely. It could be bronze too. I'll be getting it tested. All this is going to go over with me. I got dozens of plates and bowls and bracelets and oh, check this one out, Hans. You got to see this. This one's really special here. No,
give
the
it,
the
give
age
it.
on this is just ridiculous looking. Like it's got a real story to it for sure.
Oh wow, what the
Yeah,
wow.
right. Hey, I'm not going to
that
call you out by
was
name unless I'm excited.
No, that's amazing. Wow.
Right.
So what is that? That's multiple. It's not just copper.
It's
There's
got to
other
have some
things.
silver, I think,
yeah.
here, and
Yeah.
yeah, there's multiple metals in there for sure. Not like anything I've ever seen before with the reds and all. It's wild. I'm
It is
excited to get
wild.
it tested. Yeah, and this box here. Let's show you this box. I think it had like a hinge or something on there at one point. The other side of
Looks
it's,
like it, yeah.
you can kind of see it was put together, but
Fascinating. Wow. Scarab beetle
yeah, on the top
in
there.
Mexico.
And the eye, it looks like it's oxidation, but it's not. It actually glows really profusely, and it's actually like you can see the green glow. Like,
What?
That's pretty wild.
Wow.
yeah, and this one's copper for
Brilliant.
sure. But man, just the age here is ridiculous. You can really see it's. I think the metals are going to tell us a lot too because of the alloys and how they're put together. Once we find someone who's a metal expert on where different bronzes came from at this period,
Yeah.
and once I get the XRF results, I'm going to upload those into AI also and see if they have any proclamation of where this could have been made and when, based on the alloy, because I think there are certain things that are
Yeah, the
characteristic based on the time
isotopes in it.
frames. Yeah.
That's
So
wild. The
hopefully that
quartz
would be a
and
great third, as many wheels as we can get on the car. I'm down to roll with it. So I mean, I think having a compilation, you look at the Nazca mummies and they've got, DNA tests, they've got carbon
yeah,
dates,
almost there.
spectroscopy, and every form of test you could
Well,
imagine.
thank you, Brian Forrester, for putting a lot of that forward. Yeah, he took chunks of pieces of what he found in Paracas
Yeah,
and he made it happen. And he didn't tell the universities that he was sending it to where they're coming from. And so they
yeah.
found haplogroup B, which a lot of it comes out of Azerbaijan and like central Iran, which is interesting because you also have the Bosque that come out of this area. You
Yep.
have the Maori, redheaded Maori that come out of this area. And so it's like, obviously, we're traveling the worlds in the ancient past.
There's a global something
Big
here.
time.
Yeah, exactly. Correct.
Yep. Like the Gosford glyphs down there in Australia. I mean, was
Oh,
that
even that. Well, that's
fluke
from
accident? Maybe,
2500
but
BC. So it's the
yeah.
story of two brothers that went with multiple ships.
Yep.
They crashed when they left. It wasn't that they had a great trade, and then they left, and they had a storm they were inducted into, and the two brothers crashed their ships. One brother survived. He made it back to outside of Sydney. The north of Sydney is the Gosford Glyphs. Gosford's
Yep.
about 100 or less kilometers outside of Sydney. And you go up there, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, this is fake. It's just,
I know, right? Just seems so out of
it's like
place.
these aren't hieroglyphs from Egypt." And it's like, these are hieroglyphs from people that are scribes, not people that were artisans. So what you see in Egypt are artisans. What you see at Gosford are scribes. And we've had three independent researchers go there, and they've described this area as legit because what is described there is the story of their transgression. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a pretty clear story, too. There's a few things on the one wall that are
Sad to
bizarre, but
say that, well, yeah. And Billy Carson is like, oh, the second wall is all Anunnaki and this, that, and the other. It's like, no, it isn't actually.
yeah, it's not, but there are some glyphs that don't fit in terms of even proto-Sinaitic. They more look like a cuneiform type style. And what's interesting is we find this cross between Egyptian and cuneiform around this same date range in Tula. So it's possible because the god that this could be a global expedition of multiple things, or at this time it could be this version of Egypt or whatever we're dealing with at that time frame. I mean, I know they went through multiple dynasties and multiple different New Kingdom and Old Kingdom eras, and so I find that to be interesting too. There's obviously a lot of stuff that was probably lost in the wars and the burnings of Alexandria and stuff that we just don't know
Well,
now.
a
But
1,000 years later, we find the boomerangs of King Tut. And so, where do the boomerangs come from? They don't come from Egypt. They're all hunting
that's a great analogy right there for
hunting
sure.
situations from ancient, Australia. So obviously, there
Absolutely.
were trading routes there, and King Tut slash whatever, he was never a king anyway.
This
But
guy.
Tut, Tutmosis had all these in his burial chamber. He had hundreds of them. It's like, why are there boomerangs in his burial chamber? Yeah, exactly. Oh,
That's
interesting.
wild.
Sorry, just seeing this now. All right. Wow. What the?
Fascinating.
And it stinks
That
so bad,
looks more
guys. I'm
like
gonna open it, but like
Akhenaten, his
Well,
father,
what's
than anything.
inside
Yeah.
of it? What was
there's
inside it?
Yeah, he
not anything
smelled
you
it.
want to smell, bro. My goodness. That one there
Funny you do
smells
that.
just putrid. Like these
Like
ones
the
are.
heart of a pharaoh, or the intestine of a pharaoh, or brain of a
This one's
pharaoh?
definitely
Well,
intestines here.
they're canopic jars. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is also a canopic jar. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
What's
Like if
interesting
you
is
get
we
that
we don't find the
tested,
baboon. We have this guy here instead. So I don't know what
Interesting.
this is supposed to be, but obviously the baboon isn't in South America, so it's cool to see that there's a different animal, not just a generic copy of what it was, what it
fascinating.
is. Oh, dude, that was gross. Oh my gosh, I don't even know why I showed you the bottom.
So it still has a very pungent rot smell to today.
My iPad just died here, so I'm gonna be switching over to this phone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Cool, man, that's great. You gotta love Apple when you can swap seamlessly like that with your headset. Sweet.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, check this out. It's like the Apis bowl. Oops, other side now. There we go.
What?
Yeah, the bull feed on there. Pretty strange. But definitely a lot of traces of the hybridizations and different beings like that that hard to say. There's
You have
also
such an amazing collection. I appreciate this, dude.
yeah,
Seriously.
no, I appreciate you
It
guys.
really is
Seriously. This is our
wild.
20th show together. Oh, I mean,
Yes,
you've been in
sir.
most of them, Hans. Like that's crazy. I was blown away when you
Yeah,
said that.
we've been on a lot of them.
The, the rivets though, like, these are indented in there really on an interesting level, like the riveting and then
What is that made from? Is that a metal
it's
or
bronze. Yeah. Yep.
okay? Interesting. So there's something else added to it.
Yeah. Clearly on this, it's let's see if I can show you. Let's see like
And
the
these
red and
are
stuff in there.
all from Tula, Mexico.
Yeah, most everything I've shown tonight's from Tula. I do have, pieces in here from Abuelos de Jalisco. I've got pieces like this, like the orgy ball. I don't know if you've seen this, but this
Showed it last week.
Say what?
has alien titties and intercourse going on. It's just they're all like circularly like
So it's
pulling each other's
a
hair and getting
fertility
it
ball.
on.
Yeah, all right.
And
Interesting.
it's obsidian. This thing is there's not a single air bubble in it. It scratches with a stainless knife or with an iron knife rather, and
It
yeah,
does
pretty interesting though.
scratch, but yeah,
Huh?
interesting. You said it scratches with, or it doesn't.
Yeah, it scratches with a metal blade, so therefore it's probably obsidian, not glass, because the hardness is softer than the steel blade.
Wow. All
That's how
right.
you can test if it's obsidian or glass. Oftentimes, I mean, it's not a guarantee, but it's a pretty
Glass
solid because you're not
will
gonna you're not
chip
gonna scratch your
off. Yeah,
glass for your
no,
kitchen with a
glass will
metal
chip
knife.
off. Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. So I actually have a GIA doing certifications right now on that obsidian as well as on this bluestone here. Um, and what's funny is they called the gemologists who submit the tests. Um, I think this might be one of those geopolymers, and so it's I sent it off to GIA, so we'll see. I mean, I'm sure it'll just come back as a breakdown of what it is, but at least we'll know. You know, I'm
I
really
No
must
curious about that
comment on
say,
what
obsidian
you
now.
spent on a lot of these pieces, but you have such amazing pieces. One of the ones that really blew my mind was the scrying stone that you have. That yeah.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
yeah, this one is something
That
else.
is the most amazing
And it's got a
piece, I
lot of the
think.
red in here, almost more
Yeah.
red than any piece that I have, which is kind of interesting with what we
That
were
that
talking
one is
about
the one
earlier.
that blows my mind out of
Yeah.
all of your pieces.
Yeah. And the story with
Gives
the
me the
obsidian,
heebie-jeebies.
the tool techs and the obsidian, the guy Max, the elder who's filmed some of my documentaries and helped me understand this, he's been in this area, him and his family, for 300 years, and so he's been passed down teachings. And when he was, when his dad was getting up there, his dad showed him how to do this. And they take a crystal skull and they take a scrying piece of obsidian, like a round
Yeah.
flat disc, and they take a pendulum over the top of it, and he asks for the eagle's guidance. And this is before GPR and anything, but he was able to find these pieces by asking the spirits where they were and doing this technique where he would blow in the conch, he would cleanse the area, and he would use this divination with the scrying and the pendulum. And when I first seen and heard this
It's all
stuff, I'm
ley
like,
lines. Yes.
okay, whatever. But um,
Exactly. I don't
I
believe in
can't. It's
this.
so hard for me to get on board with wishy-washy shit like that. I mean, I'm sorry.
No,
I
but it's
love to learn
truth.
about it,
It
but it's
is
hard for me
truth,
to get
man.
on board.
It's truth.
But
Like
then we got
all the ancient sites are sitting over the most amazing ley lines. Yeah.
it's a real thing, and just like the people who douse and stuff, and there's real thing in the energy here, and I've learned to totally accept this and trust it. But yeah, it's interesting to know that they have these techniques that are passed down utilizing this type of technology, and how similar this is to like Ouija boards and different occult things, yet this is a
Oh, wow, that's
Toltec.
funny you bring up Ouija boards. Interesting. Yeah.
Oh, look, I've got one here. Check this out.
No, that's really interesting you bring that up because where does that
It's
tech
literally an
te
alien.
technology come from? What is a Ouija board? Yeah.
Right. And how Hitler was so interested in utilizing it, and
Oh, I never even considered that. Oh, interesting.
yeah, he used it with the Vril and Thule Society, and a lot of their alien technology supposedly came from the Ouija boards. Here's the little piece that you use on top of it. I'm gonna
What?
kill the light so you can see this here.
Mind blown.
And I've got this documented coming out.
Wow, what is that? Holy shit. Sorry. What?
No, it's nuts, man. I mean, yeah, I'll turn the light on so you can see it with the light.
No, I would love to. Oh my God. You don't even see it, but wow, that is
The
amazing.
alchemical symbols in there too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
And then
That
now
was
look
the
at the
first
back
thing that
though.
I
The
saw on a
back is
black
what's
light.
really crazy. It's just full of cuneiform.
Oh, that's what the
Oh,
back
that's
is.
what you were showing earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Now it makes sense.
Mind blown.
Now it makes sense. All right.
Yeah. Let's see.
Man, I'm sorry. I'm envious of your collection.
No, you need
I
to come up
collect
and
all the
check it
stuff
out,
from
bro. Seriously,
Asia
the,
and
the fact you're
everywhere
not
else,
too
but
far,
Who
that's great.
no,
isn't?
I'm 5 hours from you, so yeah.
Yeah.
I need to come up and check it out.
We'll find an excuse.
We will.
Yeah. Get a
I gotta find the
Spokane alien
time
event going
because
on. We've talked
I gotta
about it.
find I gotta find the time. That's my only issue is time and locational freedom is not my source right now, but
I'm with you there.
glad I'm
Yeah.
here with you
It
guys
will happen.
tonight. So
When it's meant to
Yeah.
happen, it will happen. So this is the
exactly.
back
That's how
of
it
that
usually
Ouija
goes.
board.
Yeah.
We gotta get
That,
Bernie down here as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
yes, this summer to fall, I will be. It's gonna happen. It needs to happen.
It has to happen, man. It's not
It has
doesn't
to happen.
not a
Exactly.
need,
It
it's a
has to happen.
has.
There's an event coming up in Florida. Are you going to the full disclosure now in Florida, Hans?
No, I've chatted with the
Brian?
promoter, and it was supposed to happen, but I'm not going there. So.
All right. I was gonna say that might be a good one. I think we're gonna go down there and
You're
present.
going there. You're there.
Yeah.
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 I just for me, it's like I'm working for a new company, and it's very hard to get away for a minute. So
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
I
This
said
one's tough.
earlier, shout outs to Rob Potter. Miss that guy. He passed away on Monday. And he was a huge influence on a lot of the disclosure community. He helped start Punches Life Expo, and
Oh wow.
did a lot of stuff with his own deal in Shasta, and it was really sad to hear that he passed on Mondays.
Yeah. Yeah.
May he rest in
On to the
peace.
next one. Yep.
Oh, let's pick up the pieces. I mean, come on.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as you know where they fit.
It's up. Well, we're all each other's missing puzzle pieces, so let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Some of us are edges, some of us are corners, but a
Yeah.
lot of us are the middle pieces. So yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. It all
No,
makes the
not at
picture,
all.
right?
Exactly. Correct.
It's check this one out. This is that onk that was glowing when I did the luminescence there. I think it's bronze. It's quite heavy. It's heavier than the other bronze that I have. So I don't know. There
How
might
does
be some.
bronze have luminescence? Yeah.
Well, it's
Just
because it's
pink show,
applied.
bro.
The green stuff is applied. The phosphorescence is geological. But it's interesting because it's applied,
So
but you can't see it,
can
you
you
know?
test the phosphorescence? That's my
Yes.
question.
There's a good chance that we can carbon date it even because I think they used blood to get it to apply because we found the raw stone here. I'll show you. We found the raw stone that they're using to crush down and make the phosphorescence out of. This just lights up like a Christmas tree with the same half-life in the green.
What
And
is that stone? Sorry. Just
Yeah,
I
please
I
show.
have Scott Walter doing an analysis. He told me as soon as
Oh,
he had a bunch of stuff
Scott's
going on.
interested. All right, good deal. All right, yeah.
Yeah, no, me and him have been working together on this for a long time. I mean, he's the one that pretty much inspired my research because of his show on America Unearthed. He came out and
Yep.
said he
Well,
carbon
Scott,
dated and did a lot of work on these and he said it's going
my
to change
Templar
history.
brother. Anyway, I'll leave it
Yeah, nice, bro. Yeah,
there.
heck yeah. Yeah. Now, his translations of the Cremona document as well in the Book of Wars
Interesting.
bring a lot of light to this as well. It talks about Yahweh being a dual-gendered Godhead, and it talks about the land of Nod and Anu. It talks about Anu directly in the Book of Wars, which I think is really important because obviously Anu is the most high of the Anunnaki, and to see that correlation, that could be what they're hiding from the church. And the Templars and the church kind of butt heads, and they
Oh
held stuff
God, all
against
day
each other to
long.
try to remain in power. And I think they're kind of at this stalemate that they've just kind of ran in parallel for many eons. But yeah,
I'm glad
yeah,
you're connected with Scott. Scott's amazing. I love that guy. Yeah,
yep,
good connection. Yeah.
yeah.
Didn't Scott write the a forward in your first book or something like that?
Well, he offered to do that in my first book, but I never published that one. I'm sitting on that story, which is the story of how all this started and everything, because the story's not finished yet, and we haven't really got to you can't write a biography and then leave the end out. So there's no real ending place. I got to like 30,000 words and I'm like, this isn't going to end anytime soon. So I started writing the other books in the meantime, and then I'll come back to that one later. It's already been edited, and it'll be fun to pick up from where it left off and then, finish part two like 10 years down the road or something. So whenever
I'm
we
stoked
get
you're connected
resolution.
with him. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yep, yeah, him and Jimmy Church and all those guys were on the Contact at Sea cruise, and I was a presenter there, and it was funny,
Oh, you went to that.
Jimmy.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy actually went down to Tula and dug with Adrian, the guy that threw that festival down there in Las Vegas. And yeah, he put his hands on that cave and did quite a bit of digging. They had the guys come up there to that event. That was the first time I got to meet the guys from Tula, and it was small world to know that Jimmy was like part of that because I didn't know. And I brought Jimmy over to my table. I'm like, you got to look at some of this stuff, and I didn't know he'd ever seen it before, and yeah, he'd known about it for 10 years. So the industry knows about this. It's just something that takes the right amount of
I was
science to
at
be able to
Conscious
prove
Life
it.
Expo, and there was a table that had a lot of stuff, and they know exactly who you are, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys know Mike.
Yep. Yep. Probably
Yeah,
Josh and Anthony and those guys.
yeah,
And yeah,
correct.
they research Abuelos pretty exclusively. So like they're the Abuelos guys, we're the Tula guys for the most part, and kind kind of cross
Wow.
contaminated a little bit, but
Crazy.
yeah, it's a small world when it comes to these pieces because not very many people are not. It's just not something that's ever been brought to the mainstream to question on a scientific level before, and so it's been forced into the hands of people like myself to if we want answers, you best get your own carbon detecting machine. Yeah, I'm kidding. We didn't buy
Straight up.
a cyclotron,
Well,
but man, we sure thought about it. I'll tell you
neither
what.
was
Yeah, yeah, because there's only
the
a few labs that'll
science.
do things, like Saram and Cotella, and these guys, they're world labs. They will work. On the public, but like Saram, when we had testing done, I sent all these tests to Saram, and the problem is with these guys is they won't do the carbon date until they do what's called an analysis on the glue. And so when they did analysis on that red glue, they told me that the piece I sent them was fake. And so I sent him a piece that I had dig information and significant knowledge that it was going to be genuine and just from the same source and same thing that Scott tested his pieces on there. I just wanted to see if I would get a similar date, and they refused to do the date because they said there was cyanoacrylic
Of course,
inside of
of
the glue.
course.
Yeah,
Quackademia. Yep.
but the thing is, they could have had cyanoacrylic at this time. It's just we don't know necessarily if that was a process in which they knew how to make. I mean, we know the petroleum way. That doesn't mean it's not capable to be made based off of other bonds and recipes that we don't know. And so I think it's a false negative based on the limitations of what we know versus what could actually be real.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's why I've kind of backed away from the carbon dates. Other than this bone, I sent a bone into
Well,
Italy.
you can't carbonate stone, so it's like the organic materials around it could be corrupted. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yep. So this bone here, Scott actually took the sample of, and when he saw this, he said, "Man, Mike, the cracking on this is definitely something you wouldn't find in something that was 100 years old." He said the cracking is definitely something that, oh Jesus, it cracks right on me here. Yeah. So he
As
took this
it's
knob
falling
off of
out.
here, and we sent it into Italy. So there should be a good
Well,
chance of
the
getting a
bone
date.
is different than the carving. That's all I gotta say.
The what is it?
The bone is different than the carving.
You mean the carving was done after at some point and the
Of
bone is
course,
old?
yes,
Right.
of course.
And that's definitely a plausibility. However, um, it's also a
This is what
plausibility
we
that they'll give
see
us a
at the
date of
Serapeum.
semi-accuracy. If it comes back at 2500 BC to 10,000 BC, the fact that they were able to secure the date range that we've had on 10 or 15 other dates will give me some reluctance to know that there's some scientific credibility. By itself, it's not going to give me anything other than a personal date to have to start this process of science and figure it out. It's gonna. I've
Yeah,
got about 7 of these bone daggers, and so we'll be able to test multiple of them if we get a conclusive result, and that should be a pretty good headway too. Of you know, because finding that many bones from the specific era. I mean, I guess if they uncovered a grave or something, it's interesting, but yeah, one of the bones is a femur that is longer than any human femur that I've ever seen,
the
and it's
femur could be
probably
ancient, but the carvings on it could be modern. Yeah.
and I'm not claiming that it's that. I'm trying to find out the age of the bone, just like the organic coal and the organic material that came out of the first, second, and third ground floor that we had to punch through in order to get to the 15-foot level. Each one of those dated back 1,500 years, 2,800 years, 4,600 years, and then we got through to what we're finding as the archaeological dig. And so, if this bone is older than 4,800 years, that's going to be a good example of something that could be plausible on what the date range could be of some of these items. Now, it's not going to give us that, but again, it's going to tell us something more than what we know today.
Correct.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, because the organic stuff, that's all we've been able to get dates on so far is just coal and pieces out of the ground, that were found near the sites. And there hasn't been any ceramics that have been dated in Tula, and there's been nothing with any of the adhesives. None of the adhesives in Tula come back with cyanoacrylic or organic material. It's something altogether. we don't even know what it is. So I've got a guy in a mass spectrometry lab that's going to be doing some work for me, and hopefully we can get to the bottom of what that is and break it down a little bit, because it just seems like concrete at this point, which also brings possibility to the
No, but it,
geopolymer
it
thing.
it opens up the possibility that some of this stuff is super ancient.
Yeah.
And I love that you're putting the time, the money, the effort into getting it all
Yeah,
tested,
agreed. Thank
right?
you.
It's
Thank
got
you
to be
very much.
done, bro. Like I've tried to you know how many people I reached out to. I used to talk about reaching out to all these people, working with Linda, all this stuff. I tried to pass the buck here because I'm not a scientist, and this is not what I anticipated doing with my life at all,
And you find
But
that most
uh,
of them are gatekeepers
What
and
was your
fakes,
end point?
and
What was your end point on this? What got you started? Curious.
I tried to disprove it. My buddy came back from a gem show,
Tell me
and
all.
he met Mark Russell down there, and that's who was on Scott's show that did the carbon date. And Mark sold him a couple pieces and showed him the carbon dates. Yeah, it was just on TV. These are real. Blah blah blah. It was right after this all happened, and so my buddy came back just rubbing it in my face that he's got these 10,000-year-old artifacts, and the heck you do, man. These have aliens on there. I thought they were cool. I wanted to buy some, even if they were modern, because they were cool. Compared to some of the carvings I was paying, $800 for from, Indonesia and Thailand and so on. This was cool. And yeah, I bet him 5 grand that I could disprove it. Got on the horn with Linda Moulton Howe, David Childress, all these people from the alien shows, thinking someone's gonna tell me something, and boy, it was the weirdest thing. Nobody had anything to say about it. And the only people that were talking about it, I couldn't get a hold of them. Like Scott was, it took me months to get a hold of Scott, if not years. I
Scott's an
thought he was
interesting
a
character. I'm
a
glad that you
ghost,
got a hold of
but
him. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, me too. We met in Vegas there, and no, he's good people, man, and I think what a lot of it is a lot of these people I reached out to, they have careers and they have passions that they've already put forward into motion, and so to go, it's like Nassim Harriman to go off on a side quest with this whole thing. I mean, this is a
So
lifelong dedication.
I went 2013 to Kauai when Nassim Haramein did his show there, and
Hmm.
Jamie Janover was mostly the one that did his show, but it was amazing to meet him and actually go up to the Resonance Project and see it. And
Yeah,
wow,
he's a
it's
smart guy,
like
man.
you can only imagine what's going on up there. And so that's why I'm super fascinated by this.
Yeah.
Like there's so much here. It's like what actually is going on? Yeah.
Yep. It's definitely the fact that like no real mainstream scientists are digging this apart. It gives people like us an opportunity to, if we want to try to untangle a knot that's been tied very tightly for a
Bingo.
long time. And
Yep. Quack it
yeah, it's
in.
fun.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you, Mike. This is awesome. This is so
Yeah.
it's
amazing.
just so interesting. Like it's wild because it's just the information of the proto symbols and like information encoded into these is what takes it to the next level. And we gotta
Wow.
compare lots of
What?
the proto
I think this
languages
is
to
Marduk.
what's found in the Crespi collection.
This one's actually got a human face though, which is interesting.
It does.
Yeah, pretty wild. And then on the back here, you can see the guy even maybe a little better, maybe. Looks like the king or whatever off of the playing cards. That's all I could think of when I saw this guy. I was like, man, that looks just like the king off
Oh,
the
the
playing
Sumerian
cards.
king. Looks like the Sumerian Babylonian kings too a bit.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't put that together, obviously, back when I was a kid. And so to me, like when I see that image, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's a king. But to think that that actually was inspired by these Babylonian kings and ancient times like that, it's really, we're still using those images today, I guess, is the weird part. Kingship's an interesting story.
It really is, and it's kind of adds to the Sumerian kings lists and how they went for hundreds of thousands of years, and were
Yeah.
these those?
Yeah. Yeah, that King's list goes back to 250 odd thousand years. And if you look at the fossil record and the chromosome change that occurred in our species around that time, this is when we got this mutation, and they've ran tests with quantum computers or supercomputers of some form that went through and tried to, find out how rare this mutation is. Like, are we going to randomly mutate again and come up with, 4 arms and being able to, do telepathy or whatever? Like,
Yes, we
they were
are.
doing this check, and they said it was like 500 to the 100th, like 5 times or 6 times the impossible number already. Like, it's just not going to happen. So the fact that all these mutations occurred, and I mean, it wasn't just this one at that ratio, there was multiple changes in our chromosome that occurred at the exact same time that gave us the intelligence that we have today. And so that's a really interesting thing, considering the Kings started doing their work around that exact same time.
Wow.
Just fascinating stuff, and that the symbols, the pictographic or hieroglyphic language on this tablet are identical to the ones that were originally shown by Nassim and Klaus Donna in
Hmm.
2012, and that they've
Yes.
remained consistent like that is
Yep.
also very fascinating. So this is a
Yeah.
different disc from the glow in the dark one, correct?
There's a multiple that glow in the dark. That one does glow in
Yeah.
the dark. Yeah. Yeah.
But the other image I was showing, they're two different
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah. It is.
And
Yeah.
this is interesting because it's very similar to the type found at the Burroughs cave of tablets. And does this show the original like hieroglyphic style of stuff where they got that idea from?
None of that
And
on that
seals.
tablet is hieroglyphic. It's different.
I know that, Hans. I meant like the seal style of how Egyptians have their hieroglyphics in like that
Oh yeah,
royal
same,
seal
same,
style.
like cartouche
Yeah,
and laid out
cartouche.
similar.
There
Yep,
we go.
correct.
Cartouche. Thank you.
I'm now
That's
fascinated to figure out what all this means.
This is the back there of that one that you kept showing that was glowing. The
Wow.
backs of these have some really wild scenes, like this one here.
God damn, you have a collection, man. Beyond.
Yeah,
I
I've
don't even
got
know.
quite a few of these
I gotta come
tablet or
visit
these
you, man.
discs.
Seriously,
Yes, you do.
you're like 5 hours north of me. Yeah.
This is a controversial one here.
That is very controversial. I don't I, see that one. I would feel might be a fraud,
Carbon
but
date
I'm
on it,
not.
There's a few
1825
that
years
are
ago.
interesting, like
What?
the
You have
Cthulhu
that one carbon
reference.
dated
It's actually
The the
thermoluminescent. It's
the
thermoluminescence. I'm sorry.
the
They
Cthulhu reference in one or two of your pieces kind of give me pause because
eh,
Cthulhu is completely invented. So,
you would think, right?
oh yes,
Lovecraft's an interesting fellow, though. You look into the history and where he was
oh
inspired
I
and
know his
what
history. I've researched it. So
of all people, he's kind of like Kubrick and kind of like some of these people. Like, if there was something weird
they
going on, he might
yeah
be one of those guys.
they all got channeled, and that's kind
Yeah,
of the
Mary
weird part.
Shelley's another one too with Frankenstein and stuff. I had no
Yes.
idea how crazy that story was until I started thinking about it again later,
Oh,
you know?
read the book. Oh my God. You're like, what?
Yeah.
Where is this coming from?
So a little
Yeah.
bit different than what I remembered it as a kid, that's for sure.
No, of course, because you're seeing it in the movies,
Yeah.
not in the reality of the story. And the story is very different. Oh my God.
Yeah. It's just like Animal Farm, the movie, and certain depictions of certain things, like they uh they definitely saw something.
Well, I
Yeah, this
like
is
the
a tablet
portal
This
here
stuff
that
behind.
is golden. Thank you for sharing new pieces. And wow, love this, brother. Holy shoots.
It's deep. It's deep.
It is
Yeah.
It's
deep.
always
Yeah.
mind-blowing.
I'll have to get you one of these books, Hans. You'll really appreciate this. This is like the new one I just wrote,
Me
I'm
too,
down.
please.
and it's a full
I'll buy it
catalog,
from you. I'm totally down.
of all these
Wow.
items that you've seen
And full
tonight.
color. Man, you
Oh
spent money
yeah,
on
no,
this.
high
Yeah.
quality macro. Like I took all the pictures myself,
I need one
and
of them books, faux show.
yeah, it's 400 pages of
Let's
just
chat.
that.
Well, we'll make it happen. Yeah, no, I don't
Yeah.
I don't mind paying for it. So yeah, all good.
Either way, I definitely want you guys to have them. So,
Yes,
Appreciate you.
please.
Wow.
yeah.
Mike, thank you.
Heck yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Beyond.
It always is.
The stuff you showed tonight is like all new, and it's like, oh my god.
Right? Like it just
E-
keeps coming and it just keeps having the encoded ancient knowledge in it that it's like there's
Yeah.
just too much information. It's mind-blowing always.
It's like getting hooked on drugs. Like I tell my wife, like, okay, I know the truth now, honey. I'm good. I'm done buying these things. We're gonna move on
I'm
and
now an
continue with our
ancient. I'm
businesses.
now
And
an ancient alien hook. Sorry.
now these spheres they're the last one. I swear, I swear. It's
I swear.
bronze, honey. I gotta get it. It's just and there's always something coming out, and it's never ending. So it's tough. I saw someone in the comments. Amazon has all of our books. If you go to our website, aliencarvings.com, the link is at the very top, or you can just Google or not Google, but Amazon search my name, Michael Forrest, and they'll pop up on there.
Show up at some of our conventions. There's also a lot of interesting stuff from some similar sites. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we got a lot to learn down there. Once this pops, like, I'm writing another book right now on the Miko-Con and Guerrero areas because we now found Egyptian and now Anunnaki stuff from Guerrero, but full on Anubises and different. I'll show you one of the pieces. I got one here. The pieces from Guerrero look
Yes,
completely
please.
different. And I thought they were fake for sure initially, and then I started seeing pieces like this one come,
Oh
handbags,
wow.
and they have a different style alien on there. That's why I thought they were fakes, and they looked off. But we started getting crossover and pieces out of that green material and pieces out of the obsidian and stuff that matched, and now we're finding similarities like the bird. I don't know if you can see that. You can see the bird guy
Yep.
there. They
Yep.
all look differently, but again with the ankh and these themes
Different
that are
artists
consistent.
clearly, but trying to depict the same things.
Well, and so in the MikoCon, I asked the tribe down there, because they have a museum of this stuff that they've kept hidden for years, and that's part of the documentary 10,000 Year Lie that I did, and it goes through this tribe's collection and what they have down there, and I mean I'm talking 8 foot wide serpentine jade tablets depicting creation on levels that I've never even imagined before, and so what's really bizarre is, yeah, different artists but also different times, because they say in the MikoCon that area was used as a genetic experiment ground, and that's the oral tradition that they passed down, is that there was hundreds of different species that were tested on those grounds there, and so when they find things and whatnot, they just know that this was the testing grounds, and so many of the elders know that there, and I think we're seeing direct evidence, obviously with the DNA strands and certain things depicted on these pieces, that there was complex things, and then you go down to Nazca with these Nazca mummies, and how many species of these mummies do they have now? And I think it's close to like 20 different species, sizes and shapes and different the ways they died and sat and all these things, right? So that's also evidence to me, Paracas with all the different skulls and elongated varieties, that there's likely an experimentation ground that's occurred on the Americas.
It's
It's
fascinating,
there.
and it's what's still to be unburied in those jungles and in that land.
Yeah, the jungle's a whole nother story. Amazon is so big, and Yeah, even down to Florida. A lot of people have reached out to me from Florida, of all places, saying that they have this stuff in the ground there. I mean, I had
Really?
multiple people reach out to me, and I actually had a gentleman that said that the Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum or something down there contains certain pieces that they found in the archaeological digs when they created that building, and some of it's like cobalt and different types of glass that was made a long time ago, and we see traces of that as well here. So could be a connected culture in that respect.
Fascinating.
Yeah, you see it too with the snake mounds and certain things in the south of the United States.
In mounds, yeah.
Yeah, it's in that area, so I could see it being plausible. Grand Canyon, all that stuff.
Yep. Utah and stuff as well.
Yeah. I even had a guy that contacted me from up by you. I posted the video on my Instagram. I'll have to tag you in it. I didn't have you on my Instagram when I
Yeah.
when I got it, but it was a an Egyptian pharaoh carved into the rock on this
What?
river, and he had multiple hieroglyphs around him, and he's up in British Columbia. He wouldn't tell me the exact location,
What?
but
I
I do
need to
have the guy
see
as a
this.
friend on my Facebook list. So
I
yeah,
definitely need to see that.
yep,
And
yeah, because
yes,
that's
there
not
are
too far
rumors
from
of
you.
Grand Canyon hieroglyphs.
Yeah,
I would definitely reach out to him and see if I can privately document it, because understandably that he doesn't want to make the site publicly known for risk of vandalism.
right. And that's probably what the locals would say it is anyway. It was just someone putting up some graffiti or whatnot, kind of like the Gosford glyphs. It's questionable if it's for surely authentic or not. But
Oh, they are.
I
We've
know they
we've
are
had
too. But again,
we've
on a
had
scientific
three
level, there's
independent
people
researchers
arguing it.
go there. Yeah.
You know, gotta
Then you
gotta
have
deal with the
then you
whole
have
mainstreamers.
sadly Billy Carson saying, "Oh, the backside of it is all the Adian script." I'm like, "Ah, Jesus, Billy."
Yeah,
No, 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 it isn't. It's all Egyptian, but it's hieroglyphs that you don't see in the temples. Why? Because the temples
right.
are made by artisans, not by the commoner. So
Yep. Yep. And that's an important factor too, is that it's kind of like our slang and our chicken scratch that we use to chat on a chat room versus what
bingo.
the
Yep.
the cri- the vizier used to put on the pharaoh's tomb or whatever. Way different set of language.
So I'm
Yeah.
gonna dispel the pharaoh right now. The pharaoh comes from the word perah. The word perah is the high house of the woman, the priestess. There were no male pharaohs in ancient Egypt or Kemet. Period. Done deal.
Interesting.
And end of story. It's a woman's title. So
So
real
here's what's
scholars will say in the time of Pharaoh there was king so and so. But modern scholars will say, "Oh, the pharaoh did this and the pharaoh did that," and it's like, no, you're incorrect. You just look it up. It's right in front of you. Seriously, if you're doing legit research in ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt, it's right in front of you. All of the pharaohs were women, and so they would choose their husbands. You always see them with their arm around their man, and I chose this.
are you sure they weren't
So
consorts?
no, they were the ones that
Does
choose
it
their
use the word
consorts.
man and female in the translation, or
That's
does it
from
use
the
the word
Greek. That's
consort? Oh,
100%
from the
from the
Greek.
Greek. Yeah.
Yeah, and see, I don't know if I can trust that. So when you look at the
99% of
mems,
Egyptian
and
history comes from the Greek. It
I
doesn't
know,
come from ancient Kemet. So
yeah,
they would
and
they would choose their consorts and they would rule as a unity project, all right? So
yep,
the women would rule over the fertility of the land and the fertility of the people, and the king that she chose would rule over the physicality of the people and the physicality of the land, and that was how they made their consort.
hmm. Yeah, I find it interesting
The
because
land of
of
camel.
this beard, right? All the Egyptian pharaohs would strap this on. It's on their death mask, so on and so forth. So they did this to resemble the creators of Kemet or creators in Kemet. Now it's
Yes.
interesting if they were all females, why this beard exists in the first place. Anything to do with Kemet and
So
royalty
what
and
is the
creators.
beard? It's an
Braided
extension of
tentacles.
your. No, but it's also an extension of your chakra, right? How many steps are in that beard? I can't see it because
Well,
it's buried
I mean,
beyond your name.
there's more than the Kundalini in King Tut's. I'm not sure on this one specifically, but they variate heavily based on the being. I've got a stone book with a guy with a beard all the way down to his toes.
Yeah,
Um,
even the Great Sphinx had a beard on it at one point, and it fell off, and it sits in the
Interesting.
Cairo Museum.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah,
Most people
I
don't.
just wonder with the female. Okay, so we have the female suppression, the Sophia, the whole story of the
Oh, big
Divine
time.
Mother, and all of this collapse of blah blah blah. But how this whole Kemet thing goes, is there any? Do you know of? I guess I'll just kind of switch gears. But do you know of any good Kemet books or books that specially go into the teachings of Kemet and things that go
The
back to
Land
that
of
era?
Osiris, Stephen Mailer, and the second one is God, I got it on my shelf. Hold on.
I've had a hard time researching it. That's why I kind of just stopped
Yeah,
talking
the
about it because
Land of
I don't know
Osiris
enough about
is
it, you know?
huge.
Oh, Hans is the man on this. He
That's
is.
why I just shut
The
up
other
and
one is
asked, bro. Yeah.
from Light into Darkness, also Stephen Mailer. Yeah,
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Land of
both are
Osiris. I'm
Mailer's
going in.
books. Yeah,
Yeah. Because that
worth
really
researching.
fascinates me and
Let me
how
grab them
Os
actually.
you know,
Yeah,
Osiris is a great
please do.
example here. Have you guys seen Osiris on the side of the walls in Egypt? And none of Osiris's legs are separated. Every time they're bounded together like a mummy. And it talks about how Isis would have to bandage his legs and all this stuff. Well, it's really interesting because he had the green face and the elongated head. I'm going to
brilliant,
screenshot
brilliant
this.
books. Both of these. Yeah,
Sweet.
brilliant. Both of these.
I'll kind
I
of
I
say that
have
again, Hans.
I have some differentiations from Stephen Mailer's work, but it all comes from the same source. And so, yeah, I learned from all of them. I learned from basically Hakim and his family in Egypt, and I've been very blessed to be able to learn from them because
Right on.
Hakim was an ancient wisdom keeper. All of his knowledge was passed down from a matrilineage, passed down. So it would go from the mother to the son, son to daughters, daughter to son, son to daughter, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Right on.
To me, that was the most amazing thing I've ever heard. Yeah.
Yeah. So Osiris, he had these two legs that were bandaged together, right? Isis would always have to change these
So
bandages. You're familiar with
let's
this?
stop right there. Osiris is a Greek name. His name
Okay.
was Wasir.
Okay.
Yeah. Isis was Aset. The
Interesting.
Greeks changed anything that ends with an is a Greek name. Ramses. That was his name. That was Ramasu.
Right. And that's why we got
All the
Genesis in the
yeah,
Bible.
all these names are Greek names, and so it's like
Yeah.
all of our history of Egypt are Greek influence, and it's sad because that's not their history.
But I'm talking
Just
about these two legs on like if you look at the Osiris on the wall of any depiction in Egypt, never are his legs separated like every other depiction of every other man
no,
that's
usually
walking.
they're left or right, and that
No, they're
depends
always
on
together and bandaged
yeah,
together.
yep.
And the reason is ISIS has to always rechange the bandages, and no one really ever talks about what happened to his legs to begin with to cause this bandaging to occur. And I have a theory on this. We see this being here on this tablet, and now Osiris was the first pharaoh. Some people argue Osiris had a lot to do with water. The tomb of Osiris, the thing at the bottom of the shaft, I
I've
should
been
say,
there. I've
is
been to the
water,
bottom
right?
of it. Yep.
It's water down there. And so this being here has these 2 feet that are together like a fin. You look at Dagon, who also has a mermaid tail, and you got to wonder if maybe like the Nomo and the Doggin, that Osiris maybe came out of the water and this was his amphibious transition to where he
All he
actually
was known
had
as
this
Wasir.
still on
So
his feet.
Wasir was his name, and so
Okay.
Wasir is the wiser, right? He's the wise one.
Right.
The yeah. So Osiris is the wise one. Isis is Aset. Aset is the wise water of consciousness. So
Interesting.
the Greeks looked at all these netures, which are the aspects of nature, and they decided that they were gods and goddesses, and they named them. And this is how we learned Egyptology. None of it is correct. None
Right.
of it. Yeah. All these were
Yeah,
titles.
I
They
could
were
see that.
titles, not people. Yeah.
Hmm.
So you're still going, oh, the pharaoh and this that. No, there were no male pharaohs. Period.
Well,
There were
what was
only
Was Akhenaten a female or?
no. He wasn't a pharaoh. He was a king.
Hmm. Interesting.
We're taught that he was a pharaoh, and that's not correct. The
Interesting.
pharaoh comes from the word perah, the high house of the woman.
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah, and
any
so I understand that, and maybe they took over and suppressed the female, and then tried to say that they were the pharaohs, but
hardcore. The
they
Greeks
weren't.
the Greeks thought everything was patrilineage, and so they changed it all. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
right there
Interesting.
if you look into it. The
Yeah.
pharaoh was a woman's title, not a man's title. Period. End of story.
Yeah. There's something that happened with the feminine aspect very, very significantly throughout pretty much everything. And I didn't know about this in Egypt, so it's really fascinating to me
Nobody does.
um,
This is the
because it's
problem because we're
yeah,
taught
well, it's
Egyptology,
suppression.
which is the Greeks forward.
Yeah,
We're
it's
not
all in the
taught about
man's
the
point of
Greeks
view.
backward. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe for good reason, if Sophia is the fallen and they're trying to banish the fact that she's part of the truth that will set us free, and they're trying to suppress her because they don't want us to know about the demiurge,
Oh,
then
bingo.
it would make
Ding,
sense,
ding,
right?
ding.
Yeah.
You've nailed that. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the demiurge, and that's why we get the demigod. They're the archons. That's where the creations of the demiurge, and why there's all these lesser gods,
Well,
to
is
begin
God
with.
Sophia or is God this other creation?
She's an eon, right?
No, she was the creation of,
A direct emanation of thought from the source.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is an
We've
eon, I believe it's called.
attributed her to as an eon, but she's not. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I'm just going off the Pistis Sophia.
Bingo. So
And
another patriarchal aspect, and so this is where the Greeks came in and
that would make
tried to
sense because of the
disrupt
Gnostic influence on
all of
there.
this.
Yeah,
Our
yeah,
Bible comes from the Greeks. All this
right.
comes from the Greeks, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, what happened before that?
Hmm. Yeah, and it was all whitewashed by the time it got to the Greeks, because if you look at the cherubim, the seraphim, and the ophim, and all these things that they depicted as human-headed beings, they humanized everything, with the
Yes.
new species. Adam was created, where,
Yes.
oh yeah, everything, God, it's all got to be human now, instead of whatever the species was prior.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Bingo.
The
Bingo.
pre-cataclysm, and that with
This is the
monotheism
biggest problem
came
I have.
only
It's like there's so
humans.
much prehistory that has been so distorted. Well,
Yeah.
anytime you have a war, obviously the conquering, conclave reduces that by half. So if we've had war for 6,000 years, give or take, on this planet, after 128 wars, we have no history.
Yeah, literally. That's why some
A
couch
species with
archaeologists from
amnesia.
Spokane's digging it out of the ground.
Well, that's why we're trying to refigure this stuff out. No, we're trying to refigure it. Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant.
We are figuring it out. I truly feel like this conversation has been on a level playing field, that we have a great understanding together on this, that's somewhat coming to a formula of logic. And that's, man, how hard is that to come by in this type of environment? It's
God, it
very
is
tough.
difficult, man. Mike, you have no idea
Oh, I
how many
do,
people
Oh, he does, right?
disagree.
We both do. But I've got to commend you both for all the work that you do, and we are just about at that 2 hour mark. So thank you both for joining again. And this was an excellent, excellent episode. And I look forward to the next one with both of you again. And
Mike, I love your research, dude. You're doing
You too, man.
You're doing
Thank you.
it. You have the resources to do it, and I think that's amazing. So thank you so much for sharing what you've accumulated in your collection. My God, amazing, beyond.
Yep,
And
we're gonna figure
let's
it
chat
out.
more. Let's chat more for sure.
Yep.
absolutely. So
Thanks,
maybe we'll
Bernie, for
see you again
hosting us.
next Wednesday, or we'll definitely have to do another stream next week and catch up more, because there is so much more. And everybody make sure to go buy Mike's books as well as Han's books. There's aliencarvings.com, and there is
Megalithic
Mega
All
Myth. There
my
we go,
books are
right
on
there.
Lulu, so you can find them. Yep.
All right.
Thank
But
you.
thank you, gentlemen. We'll see you again.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you,
Till next
Bernie.
time.
This is
Have
awesome.
a good night, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Be blessed, my friend.
You crazy mother. Yeah.
It's just Bernie!
Hey, Bernie, just like last week, huh?
Weekend at